Welcome to the Crushing Land podcast, a podcast dedicated to unlocking the secrets of successful land investing. I'm your host, Jonathan Havlis from the Land Method. And in each episode, we tackle a different relevant topic, bringing you insights, strategies, expert advice so that you can thrive, particularly in the current land investing world. Now, what I will say is, unlike some shows where the host claims to implement every new idea immediately, right? Because they're trying to go for dramatic effect. This is more about action for action's sake. It's not about action for action's sake. Our goal is not for you to emulate everything you hear, but to share success stories, innovative strategies, golden nuggets that others have found effective. And it's your job to listen to this, ask the questions, sift through the insights, decide what resonates with you and what makes sense for your unique investing journey. We do have special guests that join us for those extended live sessions. So if you're catching this on replay and you want to be part of the live experience, make sure to follow our Facebook group, check your emails. We send out reminders well in advance so that you can join us live and interact in real time. So with that being said, get ready to listen, learn, find the right path to crush it in land investing. So today's guest is Jay Hinrichs. And like me, Jay grew up in a what I would call land family, right? And now you started your real estate career as a real estate broker, specializing in land sales in 1975, and then from 1992 to 2011, his focus was on buying timberland, timber rights. In 2002, he started a hard money lending company, and from 2012 until today, he's been a capital partner for various entrepreneurs that are in fix and flips and also the land flipping business. And to date, his company's done over 4,000 loans and JV arrangements. His niche is lower balance transactions. He has no minimum. We'll talk about that. And up to about $250,000, though larger deals and entitlement funding are available on a case-by-case scenario. So Jay is not your typical hard money lender. His unique approach makes him more of a partner and allows you to get deals done that otherwise would have collapsed. And additionally, he is also the #1 contributor on Bigger Pockets real estate forum and is highly respected there and in other real estate investing forums and in the community. So as mentioned, this is live. So after the discussion today, we'll open it up for questions. So feel free to put your questions in the chat or at the end. Feel free to turn on your video and your microphone and ask them yourself. So that is off right now, but you can put that on at the end. So that being said, Jay, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. People have been very excited about this right from the beginning. So let's just jump right in a little bit on your background, your philosophy, because we're very similar. You've been doing it longer, but you mentioned to me that your father got you into land, which is the same story as me. So what drew him and ultimately you into the land side of real estate so early in your career?
Well, I think for my father, he started in Santa Cruz actually, and then he ran into a guy named George Trefon, and George he would go into a county and identify antiquated parcels that were what I call antiquated parcels that were platted in the 20s and never developed. And they sat on the county's books, their tax rolls. And he was able to convince the tax collector to put like 500 of them up for tax sale in 1 year, and he'd buy them all. George did. And then it's kind of like if you ever watched Glengarry and Glen Ross, that movie, it was that right there. You had a company that controlled the inventory. They had salespeople that sold the inventory. And that's what my dad started in. And it was the first time my dad had ever been in the commission business. And it took a while to get going, but then he did quite well. And that's what he just pounded into me as a kid. And I would drive around with him at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old while he was making his presentation. So by the time I was 11 or 12, I could do the pitch, as it were. And then I took a year off. I went to college for a while and didn't really like it much, and came back, got my real estate license when I was 18, my brokers when I was 20. And that was in the Carter years where the interest rates were just skyrocketed. So land And being young and very impatient, I didn't want to deal with houses that couldn't be financed. Land was the quickest way to get a sale and get commissions in my pocket. And in those days, we could write commissions at 10 to 20%. And so it paid very well. So I did that. And that's kind of how I got into it. It took me 4 or 5 years to get some capital. And then I started investing in land myself and doing my own flips. And I just grew it from there. Just kept on going.
Yeah, great. And that's a good point. I like that, because I think people, a lot of people are on that like get rich quick or instant gratification, right? And,
Yeah.
and even what you just said there. I mean, even when there was, when it was harder and harder as far as the technology didn't exist, so it had to be much more hands-on, so less people did it because of that, but it still took time, and I think that's a good lesson, just because people, it's just a one that we fight all the time. It's like you can make very good money, and it is easier, and it's a faster path than a lot of other things, right? You can get going a lot quicker, but it's still building a business. It's not like it happens in the day, and so many people
I
kind of.
mean, the escrow function has never changed. You open escrow, you close, you get title insurance. What's changed is the marketing. Um, I sold a hell of a lot of land before GPS and Google Earth and anything like that. So in my days, it was, quad maps and a compass, you know, and I did really, really good in Northern California, Sonoma, Lake, Mendocino counties, where I could actually find the properties. A lot of people would, they'd list with a broker and they couldn't even find the properties, much less the corners. So I had I had a, I had a pretty good run there.
Yeah, my dad was similar, same
Yeah,
stories,
yeah,
mid 70s, late 80s, or I'm sorry, mid 70s through the late 80s.
yeah. No, you,
Obviously
you you
completely
had you
different.
had you had to be a navigator. You had to know how to read maps and all of that. So
Yeah, good. So, obviously you do things a little differently. You are an investor, but you don't do education. You've talked about that, but your kind of side, maybe it's not even a side anymore. Maybe it's the main one now, but you do a lot of lending. So what is your approach, or how is your approach? Because you've been doing it for 23, 24 years now. How has your approach to lending and partnerships evolved since you started that in 2002?
yeah, well, in 2002 to 2010, I had a traditional hard money lending company, and we were doing basically only fix and flip lending. And then everybody knows what happened in '08 to 2010. And I had about 600 loans out in 2010, and I was using bank lines of credit, which all got called, all but one. And then we had to mark to market, and I didn't go bankrupt, but I pretty much hemorrhaged most of everything I'd earned, paying off all my banks and everything. So then I flipped from there. When I started back up, I only raised capital privately and through friends and family, and then my own capital and properties that I had retained, was able to retain and sell. So it's been a slower progression from, when I had, 50, $70 million to lend. I'm not that big anymore. That's why I specialize in the smaller balance stuff, because we can do quite well with it. And the high frequency turnovers, the short term, get our money, get back in the game. And so what I decided coming out of where I started the JV partner and the capital partner is I had all those loans out, and I ended up owning about 200 houses that I didn't want to own. And it was a nightmare, frankly. For about 2.5 years, I did nothing but write checks to sell property, and it was not fun. So starting what I'm doing today started in earnest in 2012. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a capital partners with these same people I like, know, and trust, but I'm going to take title to this stuff, and we're not going to put any debt on anything. And I, when I had my hard money company, I also had, two gals in my servicing department to service all the payments and everything. I mean, I had 22 people, overhead. So I needed a way to start with a very small staff. And by doing that, I had to do everything on accrual. So everything I do is a partner and there's no payments. So we wait until the deal closes and then we get paid and we divvy up our profits. So I don't have any staff to collect payments, and that's worked out well. And a lot of people can't do that because they're borrowing lines of credit from banks to then lend to you folks, and they have to make their monthly payments. And so it'd be a total cash flow negative for them. They can't afford to do it. I've got my setup to where I don't need payments, and that helps me because my clients that I have, it allows them to scale as well because they're not having to take on, five hard money loans paying out, thousands of dollars a month. They don't have a sale for a couple months, all of a sudden cash flow gets tight, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got into the JV part of it. I do some debt financing if people, but that's mainly on houses and that they want to refinance and keep as rentals. But for the land business, I've been doing all cash, and we have no debt. And so we just go in, pay cash for it. There's no debt on it. There's no uh, stressful moments where I have to, hey, you got to get that off the thing because my bank's going to call my loan on that, and blah blah blah, right? So I'm in a pretty good spot in that, and it helps my people get the time they need to market the property correctly and hopefully maximize their return.
Yeah, it's good. And that's important because I know that's one of the things that we talk about different funding options with people. And when we talk about JVs and we talk about hard money and all the and it's picking what's best for the situation, because the last thing you want to do is you want to if you gotta pay something every month at X and then it doesn't sell in the time you're thinking, and then it's like it keeps going or whatever it may be. That's a negative situation for a lot of people, particularly new investors. So, you kind of explained your funding philosophy, and it's different from traditional hard money lenders by far. So, just why? Why did you decide to
Well,
do it that way or make it that way?
the reason was simple. Like I said, is I went from, having a large company and 25 employees to I started it myself, my wife and and I didn't have staff. So, I know how to do escrows. That's easy. I can do that by myself, but I can't be tracking all these payments coming in and paying payments out. And so that's how am I going to do that? Well, I don't want to put deeds of trust on properties and not have income off the notes. So that's where I came up with, hey, I'll take title to it and we'll do it in a JV manner. And so there's no debt on the property. It's there. And then I have a written agreement with each of my partners and everything's customized to whatever their business is. I think Charlie's in here, and we'll start out one thing, but he brought me a deal that was a smoking deal. I'm like, okay, Charlie, I'm giving you more than I'm taking. We started here, but I'm going to give you a bonus this way. So I kind of I customize to each person and depending on what the situation is.
Yeah. And what
So
I'll
I don't
tell
have
people
anything set in stone.
is sometimes people get a little hung up too, like, oh man, I'm giving up a good chunk of the deal, but giving up a chunk of the deal is and still getting the deal is way better than not having a deal. Right? It's like having
Well,
it blow up because you can't do it on your own. There's no way to close immediately. There's no other. I mean, if there's, we've talked about this, right? With like transactional, I think you even watched that one we did with the transactional funding. And if that works out where you can buy and sell and get somebody else to fund your deal for an hour and it works out that way, that's
sure,
great. But
absolutely.
there's tons of deals that isn't the case. And one of the things that we've had people say is like, oh, I just had to walk away. And this is obviously a point here is you don't have to walk away if it makes sense, right? This is something where you can, go and actually get the deal done. And yeah, maybe you're giving away a chunk, but at least you're still getting a big chunk as opposed to just seeing a big goose egg and sorry, you
Well,
know.
and on top of that, if we're working together well and they're bringing the deals in and I like the deals, I'm allowing them to scale because they're not having to make monthly payments. And as people, because in my mind, their overhead is going to go to their marketing. Because if they're not marketing, they're not getting deals, right? So I don't want you paying monthly payments that I really don't need. I don't need monthly payments. I can wait to get my money. I'd rather you put money in your business to build up your funnel so we all have deals to fund.
Yeah.
So that's
And you
that's my
probably, I mean, in
strategy.
reality, it's coming out not as a loan payment every month, but if you've got enough deals going on, you're making money every month anyway, just in a different form now because you've got enough going on. So
Yeah.
instead
I
of
have
it being
I have closings every week. I mean,
yeah.
sometimes four or five in a week, right?
So you funded over 4,000 deals.
Yep.
So you're an investor yourself. You're obviously funding investor deals. So let's just talk about that for 1 second. What have you found in the last 50 years of investing and the last 20 years of funding, or 20 plus years, 25 years of funding, that most successful investors do differently?
Well, the a couple things is the better ones really know their market. And they've integrated all the modern marketing tools and they're good salespeople. They're able to get on the phone and they can close. And so again, I go back to Glengarry Glen Ross. If you watch, some salesmen can do everything that another guy's doing, but one person's making the deal and the other is not. And that just has to do with their personality and their ability to close. It's just like you go into a car dealer. There's always the salesman of the year up there, and he's probably there 6 out of 12 months. And he's got the same car, the same people walking in, but he's closing the deal. So that's what I see. It just depends. It's a individuals and what their skill is to present themselves. And in my mind, also with the competition that's out there, because I know I get all these letters here, everybody I fund because I take title to them, I'm getting all your letters. I'm going to my mailbox and I'm getting four or five. Do you want to sell your land? Do you want to sell your house? Whatever. So, the people that are successful are they're right on their leads when they get them and they have the ability to close. And then they know their market. They know their values and they know what stuff will sell for.
Yeah, that's huge. We tell people, become an expert in whatever the market. I mean, the market can be big. I mean, you've worked in multiple states across the West. I mean, it doesn't have to be a small market, but know it. And I would 100% agree on communication. We live in a world now where people try to do the limited amount in communication, and they a lot of texting and a lot of email. And don't get me wrong, I've sold numerous properties over the years without ever talking to the individual, but that was because it was their choice. They
Right.
texted me and wanted to go back and forth by text. They emailed me and wanted to go back and forth that way. But if they want to talk on the phone, pick up the phone and have the conversation.
Oh,
It,
that's my pet peeve.
yeah, it's
Get
like,
somebody's voicemail that's in the real estate business. For faster response, please send a text.
yeah,
I mean, I'm old school. I answer the phone. I get 5 robocalls a day. I don't enjoy them, but I still pick it up and just hang it up. But if it's a deal or something I need to get on, and even if I can't talk to them at the time, I answer the phone and say, I'll call you back in an hour. I just wanted to let you know I got your call and I am going to call you back. Boom. People love that.
yeah,
That
yeah.
it's respectful.
I agree. I mean, next generation down, but still, I mean, the whole about of just trying to avoid phone conversation doesn't even make sense to me. And honestly, I mean, I don't understand what people are afraid of. It's like if somebody's calling you about business, that's like the best person you want to be talking to. This isn't somebody to run away from. It's like this is somebody that's actually showing interest either in selling or buying, right? So it's like have the
Right.
conversation if they want to have it. It's like,
And you got to be able to close. You got to be able to ask for the order. You cannot believe. And I grew up because my dad was in this business in the 60s, which is basically precursor to guys that were coming out of siding sales, in the 50s, precursor to timeshare sales. land sales was that, and these guys made a lot of money. I mean, these guys were knocking down 200, 300,000 a year in the 60s. So they were good. And so we would have weekly meeting roundtable and, I'm in there 18, 19 years old, and these 50-year-old pros are in there and they just go around the table. How did you close this one? What did you say when he said that? Blah, blah, blah. So you just kind of learn it by osmosis.
Yeah, and
That's
one
the
point
key
you
is
said
being able
was
to
huge.
close.
You said something about being, asking for the order, or we tell people all the time, don't be afraid to ask for. They'll answer all the questions and then won't ask the person if they're ready. Are you ready to buy it? You ready for the contract? Can I send you the contract? It's like they don't want to. They're like, oh, I don't want to take
If
that
if
next
if
step.
I
It's
if
like,
I gave my closing pitch, everybody would probably hang up. They'd all leave. They said, "God, that guy's corny." But I tell you, it worked.
so. Um, One of the things that you mentioned to me, um, is that you're more of a partner than a lender.
Yeah, I'm
So
I'm a capital partner,
yeah.
true capital
So
partner.
what does that look like in practice? Like some of the logistics of what, I mean, the capital
It's
partner we get putting the money, but like the logistics of what that actually means as far
it's
as the deal.
it's very simple actually. What they do is once we've established a relationship, they will call me with a property. And now keep in mind too, I don't want to blow out any of the newer guys, but the guys that I'm funding are very good at this and know how to do due diligence. And I know how to do due diligence on land as well because I've been in it all this and I've developed and built housing subdivisions and everything else. So I expect a level of due diligence before I even see the contract. So, I'm not going to deal with anybody that just sends me over an address and says, well, what do you think about that? And then I have to dig in and, okay, well, where's the power? Where's the water? Is there environmental? Blah, blah, blah. So they've done all that to the point where if they had the money, they would buy it themselves, right? Then I'll double check that. We'll go through that. And then they basically will ask me, okay, I have 4 or 5 entities I buy property in. They'll ask me what entity, and then I'll let them know, and then they'll write up the contract, and then the seller will be in contract with my entity. So then I handle it from there. I handle all the escrow, and then when the escrow is ready to close, I wire the money in and we close. And then their job is to do the resales. If it's going to be listed with a broker, the broker simply sends me their listing agreement. I love DocuSign. Matter of fact, I will only work with DocuSign. Realtors that can't do DocuSign, I won't work with them. And then I sign the listing and it's off and going. But my client is the liaison. They're answering all the questions. It's up to them if they want to take the offer or not, right? Because they know because I have a set return I want to make, and they get to say what they want to do to make sure they're going to make either enough money or, hey, I want to get this off the books, I'm willing to take less or whatever it is. And then once we have an escrow, the we open up title, all the docs come to me, I do all this. So my clients that are doing this, they don't do any escrow function. I handle all the escrow function. Takes a lot of work off their plate. They're never going to title to sign anything. And then when we go to close, we'll get a preliminary settlement statement. We'll figure out, because like I said, all my deals are customized to each person depending on what we're doing. And we'll have it a day or two ahead of time where, Jay's making X, you're making Y, and then they put a demand into escrow for a reimbursement. And it closes and the title company pays them.
You
They
just take
send
off
a
the HUD. So
1099 to
yeah,
the title
that's good.
company. So that way I'm not controlling their money and I don't have to do the accounting of their money.
Yeah, that's
I'm just
good. Pretty good
accounting.
pay. Then you don't have to say, "Oh, this was profit." No, it's law. It's not.
No,
It's just straight
we
up the
we do
title
we do
company.
that. We have we have an internal P&L thing that goes on a computer that we just send them ahead of time. Here's what it is. They agree to it. We send it in, and when it gets closed, we all get paid on the same day. I get paid, they get paid, and the people who bought the property, they now are the proud owner of this property.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. And I also like well, I like the getting paid off of the HUD. I mean, that's great because I think that obviously just sometimes it just makes people feel more comfortable, especially the first time, right? Going from the title company.
Well, the biggest part I get with this is I've had this over the years where people are, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of crooks out there in the world, and they're like, well, what happens if you close and I don't get paid? Well, my answer to that is, okay, I could do that once. And then the next thing I know, there'll be a thing on Bigger Pockets. Jay Heinrichs is a crook. He stole a deal from me. I mean, it would be absolute suicide for me to do that.
Yeah, especially who you are on bigger. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's
And
that's
I mean, with
definitely huge.
social media and
Yeah.
and the rip-off report and all these other things, I'm not out to steal anybody's money. I would never do that. I get what I got coming, and they get because I want them to get paid. I want them to have success, and I want them to bring me new deals. Because the flip side of this is I just go out and hire my own people to do this, and I do my own marketing and I do my own because I know how to do it. But I just, at my age, I don't really want to bring on the overhead or whatever. I'd rather partner with people, let them do what they do, and we just split profits.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's on both sides because you also said like you're not going to do the deep the initial due diligence. You're not going to go. So that means
Yep.
the person's going to be educated, and like you said, Bo, too, you don't do education either. You're staying out of that aspect too, and
No, I'm looking to you to train them, not
yeah.
me.
And that's what I say.
Yeah.
Like people from here that are joining us or people that have been taught and have been
Yep.
trained and understand this is the way you look at the deal. And then obviously if it makes sense, we talked about one beforehand, you got a deal that's, you're buying for $35,000 that you could sell for 70, but you don't have $35,000 and you can't, well, this is an option now to go in and get that thing sold and everybody still makes a good profit after everything's done. That was just some random numbers, obviously, but it was something we talked about before we began.
Well, one thing I wanted to point, the other point I wanted to make, and why I'm doing this with you and opening up my, because right now I have 90% of what we do is in the fix and flip. And it's just, you have to do draws and inspections, and there's just a lot to it. If I could take our capital and I got a nice cadre of land flippers, I would get out of the house funding business.
Yeah,
I
our
could just
original
go do that.
conversation, you actually mentioned that. That's
Yep.
actually how this started. When we were talking, when the first time you said that to me
Yep.
was like, if I could do just funding, I would do that just because
I
of
mean,
the,
we do really well with the houses. Don't get me wrong, and I have some really great clients because I don't, and the house flipping, I don't lend to any newbies or one-offs or somebody doesn't live, these are high frequency guys that are doing 40, 50 flips a year. Those are those are my clients. I don't do all of them for them, but I might do, let's say, 15 of them in a year, and then they have other hard money lenders. So because what happens is because I'm doing everything the way I do it, I am more expensive in the house flipping business than a traditional hard money lender because there is a race to the bottom on rates. The Kiavis and the Lima ones of the world for the high frequency flippers. But I will get the guys that just don't want to take on any more debt, right? And they don't want to have the fixed overhead. And so they'll look at part of their portfolio and they're like, okay, I'm going to go to the cheapest money here first, and I can afford, 50 grand a month with the hard money lender that I got to pay for, but I but I want to expand and there's another 10 or 15 deals I want to do, but I don't want to make monthly payments on them. And that's what I do is I bring in, they're still making a nice money. I make more than the hard money lender, frankly, because of the way I set it up. But it allows them to scale and get deals they would be missing.
yeah. Same thing with the land. That's exactly what we've told people. I mean, you just got to look at it and every situation, but that comes down to, even if you're giving up half of the deal, let's just say that was the way it was structured. Would you rather give up half of $50,000 to $25,000, or would you rather get nothing? Because if those are
Yeah,
your options, because you can't go elsewhere, it's like the situation is a very simple one to look at, especially when you're looking at the fact that you're the one putting up the money. There's no monthly payments, those different things that are big question marks in a lot of people's heads, as they're going in, or concerns just kind of get erased. And now it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to have to give it up. But in reality, it's not anything you're really giving up because you didn't put up the money. And at the end, you're just getting a fat check for letting
Yep.
somebody else get
They're,
involved. And
they're a broker on steroids, only totally legal.
yeah,
They're not selling real estate they don't own and everything else. That's the other thing that's happening in these states. The whole wholesaling thing, like in Oregon now, um, come June 15th or so, you have to have a wholesaler's license. You just can't do what we've been doing for the last 30 years in the wholesale business. There's questions popping up on here. Am I supposed to just answer those as
we'll
well?
answer them at the end because we might go through a lot of different ones. So we'll hop on. We'll let them answer at the end. But what about let's just talk about the criteria deal structure a little bit. I mean, what do you look for when you're deciding whether you're going to fund the deal or not?
Well, what I like, what people are bringing me right now is generally um, what I call antiquated recreational subdivisions, which I'm sure everybody deals in these if you're in the land business. Colorado, um, Idaho, Washington, California, Montana, those areas. Montana, I tend to do, 20, 40, 80 acre type deals. Um, and so we've been doing a lot of those kind of transactions. Um, then we've been doing some infill lots, Florida, Texas, those kind of areas. And Florida's a little scary for me because of the environmental stuff that goes on there. Um, if I brought on somebody new, I would need to know they really know what they're doing in Florida.
Yeah,
And
I've done a ton of deals in Florida. I lived there for a while, and
yeah,
between the wetlands and the mangroves and the scrub jays and the
yeah,
gopher
yeah, and the,
turtles
and
and
the burrowing owls and
yeah,
everything else. So, and I'm not interested in going into Lehigh Acres and trying to, flip those 200,000 vacant lots. But anyway, that's what people have been bringing me. And I know there's other areas of the country like the Poconos and all through the Appalachians. It's wide open, where land is. And I just funded one in Texas that is, the guy's actually going to build a new house on it, and he was a typical, you know, hits me on bigger pockets on a Monday and needed to close on a Friday, So I just did that one. Um, so I'll look at most of them, and then the smaller balance stuff. I'm good with the smaller balance stuff. Um, you know, uh, and we'll take them case by case. Sometimes but I want people to.
can you just really clarify what you mean by smaller balance, just for anybody that's like wonder because people have asked that,
Well,
like, how low
let's
will
say
he
they
go? What does that mean? You know?
well, what if let's say they pick up a deal that's for 5 grand and they can sell for 12. You know, I'll put up the 5 grand. We'll sell it for 12. We'll split the profit. It's great for me. I'll do it and great for them.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, those are deals that as people get going, they should have some capital and they should be. But again, if this is your
Yeah.
first deal, you don't have $5,000, you don't want to walk away, make 3 grand for,
Yep.
and do the next one and keep it. Yeah. So, absolutely. What about red flags? Like, will not go there. Do you have any like red flags that immediately kill a deal for you?
Well, yeah, it's going to be, we have to have a deep dive into, um, they got to be buildable. Unless it's like a recreational acreage that no one's planning on building on. So that's the biggest deep dive. Are they going to perk? Are you in an area where, there's a bunch of dry wells and, you're not going to get water and we buy it and we can't resell it because the locals know it's dog do, right? Not resellable. So those are going to be the major issues are going to be that. And then, power, depending on where you're at, is important, but sometimes it's not if it's 40 acres and in rural Montana somewhere and they're just going to use a generator type thing or camping or whatever.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, the recreational would change. I'm assuming some environmental issues obviously would come into play. We already talked about that. I mean, depends on what they are, right? I mean, somebody actually asked that question in the group the other day. They were, I think, and they were, oh, somebody's got unmuted here. So, um, they were asking about the turtles, in Florida, gopher tortoise, and what do we do with this? And
Right.
it's like it really just depends. The price to move them varies, the price to do this vary, all of these things. It's like, so that being said, it's like you got to look at the deal. Is the value there? Is all that? So I mean, obviously there's certain things that just come up in due diligence, and that's you know
Well, a lot of times in the land business too, the reason you're buying an $80,000 lot for 20 grand is because it failed perk and they can't get it sold, or there's some other underlying problem with it that, you need to be smart enough you don't want to be buying their problem and then we get stuck with it.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had a couple properties like that. That's one we've actually had somebody else that came on here once. He's a soil scientist, and we talked about those type of deals. And there's still a lot of potential in it, between engineered systems or something else if the lot warrants that, to make it work. I had one. It was funny. I got it for next to nothing. It was down by the beach in North Carolina. It was like a block away, and it wouldn't perk. Of course, it wouldn't perk. It's sand, and the water table there's like a foot deep, right? And they didn't have public, so it needed an engineered system, but it was 3/4 of an acre, a block from the ocean. It's like I bought the thing for $12,000. So even putting the engineered work into it and spending all
Yeah,
of that extra money, it's like I made a killing on that lot.
yeah,
So
those are the due diligence things we'll look at. I bought a 4 acre in Sonoma County that wouldn't perk, but it was in Roanoke Park right behind the Home Depot. And it was just an educated guess that it was going to develop. Steve probably knows right where it is. Well, we got lucky and the largest Indian casino in Northern California built right across the street. And I sold it. I paid 28,000 for it and sold it for 2.2 million.
that's a home run deal if there
But
ever was one.
but there's a but to that. I had to hold it 20 years. So
That's still a great
what would
return,
that
even in 20 years.
28,
That's a good return on investment.
yeah, what would that 28 done for me over 20 years? But
Yeah.
anyway,
I mean, if it was 200,000 for 2 million over 20 years, but for 20,000, oh, that's
yeah. So
so
I mean, I'll look at and a guy brought me that and we partnered it and he paid off his ranch with it.
So one of the things that you did mention was beside the flips that you will case by case evaluate entitlements, possible development, things like that. So
Yeah,
how does that play differently, or the way you evaluate or look at that differently
yeah,
than just the traditional funding?
I have four entitlement deals going right now. Um, I've got two of them in Loudoun County, Virginia, really high-end stuff with people from the East Coast. If they know Loudoun County, it's just right out of Washington, D.C. And then just south of that is Frederick County. And both of those are pre-sold. The one in Loudoun County is Toll Brothers, and the other two are Lennar is buying them. And they're large deals. They're 200, 300 lot deals. And, I've put up a couple $1 million to do the entitlements for those. And the guy that brought them to me is going to make life-changing money. I mean, life-changing money. And we're going to do very well.
Yeah, you showed
So
me that deal, so that was
yeah, but
yeah.
I want to give a caveat here. Now, this guy's a civil engineer. He worked for 10 years in New York City, one of the hardest places to do development, and he knows his shit. Excuse my language, anybody. I mean, he knows what he's doing. I flew out there and I spent 4 days with him going into meetings and pre-op meetings and everything before we did what we were doing, and then we pulled the trigger. And then I just funded one in February over in Bend, Oregon, for 1.2 million, and that's also pre-sold to Lennar. And that was a little bit different. They needed the money to get a bond to build a road, and we were able to. It's a little complicated, but they also had a $2 million deed of trust that they assigned to me as further security for my 1.2 million.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously, a different deep dive, right? Or I should say a
Yep.
different, a deeper dive, I guess is the best word. But obviously that's because but it makes sense. And if somebody has that may be so let's just talk about that for 1 second because I'm sure people are gonna. So what level of if somebody has something that may warrant what we just talked about, what level of due diligence are is the investor, the person that's bringing you the deal, doing in advance in those cases as opposed to
They need to be doing full deep dives into it and then getting stuff to me. And then I can pretty much tell if they're got any kind of experience or what they're doing, or if
deep dive
they're
as in like they need to like already know it's approved, will be approved going that far with the county, or like
or
or the preliminary, like okay, we've talked to the county, we've talked to the city, it looks like we can do this if we take the next step and bring it here or whatever.
I
Where
don't know
would you get involved in this process?
if the audience knows what by right means, but by right means you can develop the land by right. You don't have to get any use permits, rezonings. It's you just have to hit their criteria in the code. So that's what I would be looking for. I wouldn't be looking for anything that has to go through discretionary. We need to rezone this. We need to do that. Like we're looking at some stuff in Houston right now where they can do lot splits super easy, right? Little infill lot splits. I love
Well,
infill.
Houston's the land of no zoning, right? Or used to be. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
So yeah, and I can say that you know this isn't going to be a high frequency thing. I might do one more this year and that would be it, but it's got to be a no-brainer for me. It's too much money, too much risk. I don't own the land, it's all unsecured risk capital.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously it has to make sense for everybody. And one of the things that we teach and talk about is, I mean, those aren't the deals that come up, 90 something percent of the time. But when they do come up, it's nice to know that you have options and have ability to work with somebody and
Well,
things like that if it makes sense.
and a lot of the people that get into those deals are frankly are beginners and they don't really know. They're very excited. They do get in there and they get them, but they don't really know what it takes to get to the other end. And this is one thing that when it comes to capital and building your business, um, that I don't really I love bigger pockets, but I don't agree with all the guys on there where they'll just say, "Oh, get the deal, you'll find the money, no problem." And I don't think that's super good advice. I think folks should make sure they have some sort of money lined up so that when they do get a good deal, they can pull the trigger. Because money doesn't always just come to you, and you just can't make a blanket statement because you don't know. It could be a good deal, but the person bringing it is not, can't get the money because they have something, they can't qualify for the loan, they have bad credit or whatever they're doing, right? So I think for me personally, I think better advice is to line up your money and then go shopping
Yeah,
so that when
we
you
tell
do find a
people that a
great
lot.
deal,
I
you can
mean,
close it.
that's one of the reasons we do these different things and we put people in our resources in our course and stuff like that is we tell people, hey, here's some different options as to which way to go. We've done one on transactional funding. We talked about that. If that makes sense and you can buy it and sell it the same day and all the pieces align and it works out, then go that way. If you need somebody to work with you and you're going to lose the deal, if not, and it's a great deal, but it's going to take a little bit of time. One of the things that we talked about was sellers are getting a little bit more, tight with like the time frames and they're not giving you as much to, or, maybe they'll give you the discount, but it's like, yeah, I'll give you it for that price, but I want you to close in 30 days. And you're sitting there and saying like, I don't have time to line up. You don't want to lose the deal. So these are all huge points to start.
It's a wholesaling land, houses, whatever is a Chinese fire drill. I mean, it just is, because you get buyers, yeah, I'll buy it, and then they back out the last day.
Mhm.
And you spend all this time and energy and everything, and somebody you can't control doesn't come through. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, it just happened to me. I mean, I'm experienced in this business. I do a number of deals and had a property under contract and went to title and the guy was talking and all of a sudden, just out of the blue, ignored my calls, ignored my text, ignored the title company, and finally I just told him, I was like, listen, you're not answering. I'm just putting this back out. If you didn't respond, we put it back out. And we got a buyer a couple days later. Like another buyer came along, but you just don't know when that's going to happen. That's still you can't control it. So he's as good as you are in this business, as much as you've been doing it. That's always a real risk. That's there. And if you're we owned those properties, so it wasn't a big deal. But if I was trying to get it exactly timed right, where it's like I don't own it and I'm trying to line up my buying and my selling and I'm running out of time, that whole deal just blew up in my face because of that. And
Yeah,
that's what we're trying to avoid.
my program is basically set up on a 4-month turn, right? From the day we buy it, we want to be out of it in 4 months, kind of six at the outside. Um, and so that's what our goal is. And that gives people, like if you're, because really, frankly, a lot of the best buys are between Thanksgiving and the first of the year. When your competition, they're burnt out for the year and they stop. They've made money, they go on vacation, they have family. I mean, I've made a lot of my best deals in November, December.
Yeah, we say that
But
all the
anyway,
time. November,
yeah,
December is amazing for buying, and January stinks, but it's a great selling month for us all the time. It's like as
yeah.
soon right after New Year happens, everybody wants to buy property again. So it's like,
But it gives you time for an organized disposal, dispo of it instead of, hey, I gotta find a buyer in 30 days, right? And then it also gives you stronger negotiating skills or position because you don't have a drop dead date, and if you don't have the money by that day, you're going to lose it all, right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
So everybody that's here, I mean, because we had people join since we started. So something I mentioned at the beginning, I'll just mention it again here as we're going along. That after this discussion that we're having here, we're going to open it up for your questions. So we've seen some of them popping up in the chat. Feel free to keep putting them there if you want. We're going to cover a lot of what's been popping up there, so we're not ignoring you. We just haven't gotten to it yet. But if something doesn't get answered that you want answered, go ahead, put that in the chat. Or at the end, we'll let everybody unmute themselves, turn on their video. You can hop in here, and ask whatever questions that you want directly at that point too, and just enter. Uh, we'll just have a conversation for a little while and let Jay answer any questions that you may have for him. So
Yeah,
just
I'm
want to
on
put
no
that out
time
there.
clock here. I work for myself.
So let's talk a little bit about some pitfalls or mistakes, things like that you see in the industry because you've been around for a long time. So, what's a common mistake that you see newer investors making when they're coming to you for funding?
Okay, first off is they don't run title right away. And they get way down the line, and all of a sudden, there's a property's landlocked, there's an easement problem, there's a lien on the property. The sellers don't know half the time, oh yeah, it's free and clear. And then you do all this and you get towards the end and the title company's lazy and they don't run your title commitment to weigh in the thing, and the next thing you know, you can't transfer title. So for me, if you're working with me, the day we open up, well, one, we have just closed it, so we know we have clean title on it, right? But I still get at least one title claim a year, and I handle the title claim, and I know, I get proper title insurance. Um, but if I'm not involved with it and you're doing it on your own or whatever, that would be the first thing I would do when you're buying property and you're putting up earnest money and you're going to pay to survey something or do something, and especially back east where you're using abstractors and whatnot, you need to tell the title company or the closing attorney or whatever, I want you to, day one when I open escrow, I want the West Coast, it happens kind of automatically that way. So you'll know usually within a week or something if you got a buggered title. So that's one gotcha. Then the others obviously are going to be environmental. If your access is okay, your water, your septic, and utilities. Where's your power? And if you got to run it in, how much is it going to be and stuff like that.
Yeah.
because your end buyers are, that's what they're going to be focused on.
And one of the things I'll just add, even though we're not funding, but we've used funders, and one of, I don't fund because I'm on the opposite side of you. I do the education. I don't do the funding, right? I mean, there's only so many things you can be involved in. But one of the things that I've taught people, and I've said from the beginning, I've done it myself, is whether you're using your money, somebody else's money, whatever, treat it like it's your own money. What information would you want to be comfortable to put up X if you had it? Right? Because that's what the other person's going to want too. So what do you need? I mean, if it's a if it's a $30,000 buy price, what would make you comfortable as the investor to put up the $30,000 if you had it? And if you don't have that answer, then don't even go to the funder until you get that answer. It's like because
Yeah, I just go back to my beginning remarks. I'm going to somebody who's just giving me an address and what do you think? We're not going to be doing business because I don't have the time to do all your due diligence for you. I have plenty of deal flow, right? You need to go to the top of my funding stack, not the bottom.
yeah.
And the more work I have to do means you're going down the funding stack.
And there's obviously, I mean, there's people here, maybe they'll chime in a little bit at the end or in the comments or something. I mean, there's a couple of people here that you said that you've worked with. I mean, like Charlie's here. I mean, he's been around for a long time doing deals. So obviously, even experience and stuff there, people are seeing a place for it. But it's
Well,
also,
I need to make sure that's Charlie from Oregon.
I think he was the one that comment. He can comment, but he chimed in. I think on when I made the post, he was saying he had worked with you and knew you and all of that. And
Okay, well then, yeah,
so
that's we met kind of funny because he had tied up, if it's the same guy, he had tied up a piece of property on the Columbia River on an island my wife grew up on, and we wanted to buy it just for to camp on, but it turned out we couldn't really the dike committee. We couldn't get in there, so we backed off of it. And then I somehow we got to talking together, and I found out he was local here, and then he brought me a deal up in Washington that
he just commented, said it's him, same guy. So
okay, and we did quite well on it, and we had a deal, and like I said, it was so good. I'm like, here, Charlie, I'm gonna skew this to your side instead of my side. But anyway, and then. I know Steve. I don't know if he's still on or not, from Bigger Pockets, and he lives down in the Bay Area, and he knows my property in Sonoma County, so he knows what I'm talking about. Where the casino is now.
so
So
we talked
that's the only ones I recognize here.
we talked a little bit, or you did a little bit about new laws and change and stuff. So how do you see the current market or market trends or whatever you want to call it, the way it's heading, affecting?
Oh, wholesaling in 10 years will not be done the way it is now. It's going to be, except for some um, uh, uh, very limited states. I mean, it's just going right across the country. No assignments. South Carolina, most of the closing attorneys there won't do assignments. I do business in Iowa. You can't do assignments in Iowa now. Um, and like I said, Oregon, this they've really defined it. They've done the best job so far. They're like, okay, anything that's equitable interest, wholesaling, you're not a real estate broker, you need a wholesaler's license. And you don't have to have a test, but you have to have insurance and a bond. And they've got this whole big list of disclosures you have to make. So you have to make it in all your advertising, and you have to have your license number on your advertising so you can check with the state. And then, so it's going to be, a little tougher for the house guys. Really, it's going to be tougher for them. And then there's going to be penalties if you don't do it right. If you don't make the proper disclosures, there's going to be, there's rights of rescission where where the seller can unwind on you legally. And so that I just see that coming through, and it's not really the land people that are causing this, it's the house people.
But it's actually
And
interesting is not every state, but some of the states have actually excluded land.
Yeah.
They're only
Yeah.
doing it on houses. They don't care what you do with land. It's like, you can do whatever you want. It's like,
Right.
so that's why we said, like, it was funny. I was working in one state that was like that. And it was like, okay, I talked to the attorney. What's the disclosure? We take title to everything. Whether it's for 30 seconds or a year, we take title to everything, right? So that's part of that helps us. And we teach that. But then I started asking him, like, well, what's the disclosures that I need to make? Because, I don't technically own it yet, but I'm going to own it. So what do I do? And he was like, "Oh, your land." He's like, "You don't even have to worry about it." He's like, "It's houses only. You don't. It doesn't even apply here." And I was like, "Oh, interesting." So, the land game is a little bit different, but how long it takes to catch up, for the
Yeah.
politicians to
I,
change
I,
it. I mean, who knows?
I think the land folks are okay. The house flippers are going to have issues. I can just tell you, it's just the deals that I see in the inner cities. I do a lot of business in Baltimore, Philly, south side of Chicago, Cleveland, basically in ethnic areas. That's pretty wild what people talk people into doing, and I don't. When I'll see a deal sometimes come in and the seller's getting 10 grand out of the house and the wholesaler's making 80 grand. I'm like, I'm not going to fund that.
Yeah,
I'm just not going to. I mean, on
yeah,
my moral compass, some little old lady just lost their whole life in investment there.
yeah,
And the other thing people don't understand too is if you have wholesaler fees on there, you don't get title insurance for that. So if there's you're only going to get title insurance for 10 grand. So you pay cash for it for 90 and you pay the wholesaler 80 and the title's buggered up, you just lost 80 grand.
yeah. Well, and that's part of the
And I
reason
learned
that we
that the
also
hard
talk
way.
about
It's
double
happened to
closing,
me.
right? As opposed to assignment, because you're making a big fat assignment fee in the middle. The
Yep.
end buyers, it's like if you double close though, they're paying that. No, they're
Yeah,
paying.
no, assigning it is fine because then you get the title insurance for, the amount you're doing it for. But what I'm saying is the assigning stuff is going to be much tougher.
Yeah.
And there's risk in the assignments to the buyers that they don't really realize they're taking on.
It
The
was one.
wholesaler's long gone.
There
They're
was
not
one
making
story. It
money.
seems like they would have caught on before with fixing this stuff. It was funny because this goes back to like 2008. I was in Florida at the time, and that was when the bottom just fell out. But right before it happened, I was talking to an attorney that actually worked with us and like drafted our documents and stuff for land. And he was telling me, the daisy chain deals, because those were like, just totally not, A to B to C. He had one that had A through G individuals on one closing. So
Yeah,
everybody's making like reselling it and assigning it before it even gets to it's like $10,000 here, $15,000 here, $3,000 here, whatever it was. But it went A to B, they're making, it ended up going A to G with B, C, D, E, and F in the middle, all getting their little, and I'm like, that's just totally insanity. It's like, it doesn't even make sense. It's like,
I still see it today where there'll be three wholesalers getting paid. One guy's getting 2 grand, one's getting three, one's getting five. I mean, I can't, they're trying to make money and my clients want the houses. I just need to make sure that I'm getting proper title insurance.
sure.
But
Let's
but again, I'm not the wholesale police, but if something is really out of whack, I I gotta sleep, I gotta live with my conscience here. So yeah.
let's talk for a few minutes. Let's shift gears a little bit because you've mentioned it a couple times and bigger pockets. So you are the top contributor on bigger pockets. You told me it's been for years and it's not even close, right? Between you and number two. So you're very familiar with that. So what's that experience been like? How's that platform evolved over time? I actually found it interesting because I'll tell the story in a little bit about like how we got introduced, but it's like I didn't even know Bigger Pockets. I remember it from a decade ago or so. I didn't even know it was still a thing. And then we ended up being, and then you were talking about like, how much you're involved there. So what's that been like, over the
My
years and
my
everything?
involvement with Bigger Pockets is basically giving back, to be frank. And I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but there's not a lot of people on that site that have as much rounded experience in all different aspects of real estate. At one time I had 300 rental houses and I've built 500 houses, as a house builder. I've developed multiple subdivisions. I've had hard money lending companies. I've been in the timber business. I've done all these different things. So with bigger pockets, I can get on there and talk on a lot of subjects, and it's not it's from experience. I don't know everything, of course. I know a lot about title and escrow. I can tell you that just because of hard knocks. And so for me, it's more of a way of giving back. I'm never on there. I don't put my contact information. You got to really dig to get my contact information. I'm not really looking for clients off of bigger pockets, um, because a lot of them are, frankly, they're beginners. And so I'm trying to help them with beginners, and they just want to buy rental houses, and that's what they should do, right? So there's not as many um, entrepreneurs on there that want to go out and build a business where um, they're getting income based on a job that they're doing. And if you're in the land flipping business, you're in the land flipping business, and it's a job. That's your job. That's your vocation. The majority of bigger pockets, people just want to buy rental property because they have a dream that they're going to own these rental properties and they're going to live off of rent the rest of their life. Now, that's um, a dream that doesn't come true very often because the rental business is very tough, and you got to own a heck of a lot of rental houses to make enough money to live off of cash flow. But that's the majority of what Bigger Pockets is. It's a cash flow site. It's not a flipping site, and you'll get some talking. There's that, I think his name is Seth or something. He's been on there. There'll be a couple things that'll come up about, companies like you, Land Geek, and um, Jack Bosch, who I know from when I used to fund Rich Dad Poor Dad students. And so there's a little bit of that, but not most of those folks are looking for, buy an investment property and get a rental return. They're not looking to start a business, and all the folks on here are looking to do some sort of start a business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, because I said I'm not on Bigger Pockets. But that's actually still how we met because a student of ours and you were communicating on Bigger Pockets. And then he's like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
This is, yeah. So what happened was that somebody was giving him a very hard time. And, you know, and of course, being a Budinsky like I am, I just jumped right in there and like, I know the land business. And, that this, you guys are being unfair to this guy, touting this guy's land business over, training business over another one, because the land training business is not frankly, super complicated one. Buy low, sell high, market, and whatever. Um, and so, there's 4, 5, 6 places to go to get to buy training, right? And it really depends on who the guys are. Some of them want to be gurus. They're not going to do what you're doing. They're not going to be here for an hour doing this. They're going to go like Jack Bosch. He's going to go to Rich Dad Poor Dad, stand up in front of an audience, make his pitch, and then go back to his house in Arizona and let his staff sell his system, right? It's all canned, right? There's no real personal interaction. With you guys, you have the principals actually doing the training, which is pretty nice, which is different. But anyway, this guy was taking a bunch of heat. So I jumped in and tried to help him, and then and I wrote him off the side, and then he told me who you guys were, and then I think because I do want to shift some of our capital into land flipping, I was wanted to reach out to guys like you and offer my services to your
Yeah, he
students.
sent us an email. It actually went to my business partner, Genus. And then he said, hey, we got an email. And he said, you should get in contact with you. And so then we did. And then it was like, I think it actually evolved pretty quickly. We got an email, and I think we talked later that day. And then we kept having conversation. And we're like, oh, this is a good fit for some of our
Well,
students.
this goes right back to answer the phone, right?
Yeah,
How to
it's
do
like,
business. Don't wait a week, If I want to do something, I do it that day. So.
so one thing I'll ask here, because you mentioned it in our discussion and you just said it. So let's talk about it just for a second is the rise in guru content that's out there, right? And I'll straight up say, I say it all the time, I don't knock any individual, I don't knock a program, but one thing I do try to tell new investors is how to look at things, right? Take the time to actually look at things. And so that's one of the things that I always ask people like you, an experienced guest that gets on here. How can newer investors, what's your advice to new investors to separate, real experience based advice from just what you were talking about earlier, the hype, the misinformation, the canned stuff, all of that stuff. What's a good way to evaluate, what you're listening to, what you're hearing to because there's so much out there now.
Yeah, it's pretty tough because especially if they don't really know anything, they don't know what they don't know, right? So I think one thing they have to realize is a lot of these guys and the tax sale guys they're the king of it. They show one deal where they bought a house for 9,000 at tax sale. It's probably real, and sold it for 200, and then lead people to on that, you're going to do that once a month and you're going to be rich, right? So you have to have a grain of salt of how much money you can make and how quick you can make it. So I think as much as anything, and the FTC got like I worked with Armando Montalongo. I was funding a bunch of his students that were buying properties in Orlando. I did a bunch of the acquisition financing for his students there and in Vegas. And those guys, him and Nick Vertucci, Nick's a good friend of mine. They they kind of got shut down because of their promising too much. You know, come to my seminar and learn how to make 40,000 a month flipping houses. That was just too much, right? So you got to be careful of that, of over promising. Not that it can't happen, but you're not going to do that starting out, and you want to get honest feedback from folks of what the reality of the income potential is.
So do you have any things that set off to you like as a red flag or a warning sign that you may see in an online forum or something like that that suggests that someone is teaching more from theory and from past experiences and from the canned stuff that you talked about as opposed to real deals?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have uh, this one guy in Cleveland who was, pay me $15,000 and I'm going to show you how to. He was a newer one, and you can make 20, $30,000 a flip. You pay me, and you get to, you know, my real estate contract and my contractors, and I'm going to bring you the houses from the wholesalers, and they go for about a year and a half, and then when people don't do very well, it just flames out. But in the meantime, he's made a couple $1 million selling $15,000 training packages, right? Because I know it's not as easy. No one is going to just give you can't buy your way into this. Here's 15,000, and all I have to do is pay my trainer here 15,000, and they're going to hand feed me wholesale deals that I can make 50 grand on, and they're going to feed me their contractor base, and they're going to feed me all these different components. Um, that you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit because some people mentioned bigger pockets in the comments. You're there regularly, the top contributor. So you did talk about some of the negativity, like as far as like what people are putting out there and what the goals are stuff. But what advice would you give someone who wants to go there to actually learn, but not get overwhelmed or misled? What
Well,
would you say like on that forum to in particular to look for or do
just
or
just
whatever?
just start reading the articles. There's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of really good people on there. There's a lot of really good experienced people, and a lot of them are very giving. If you got to be polite though. It's amazing, and I don't know if it's an age group or whatever, but I'll get people that'll hit me offline, and they'll, what do you want? They'll ask me to do things and not even a please and a thank you. or I'll answer their question and they never respond to me. And then after a while, you get burnt out, and then I don't even respond to them anymore because they just don't have common manners, I guess. So I would say get on there, be very polite. If you want to hit people, on their private messaging, a lot of them are going to be really good, and especially, and most of them are not going to be like me, where they know a lot about, I know a lot about a lot of markets. Most of them are going to be highly regional. So you would want to get in and focus on, there's a field in there, let's say you're in Texas. You can just click on Texas and just read all the Texas threads. And there's some really great guys from Texas. And those are the guys you're going to want to talk to. And that's the difference between like how escrow and land and everything is done on the East Coast and how it's done on the West Coast is really different. So you don't want to be taking advice from somebody from Connecticut on closing a deal in Nevada because we don't use attorneys in Nevada, you
Yeah.
know?
It's interesting
And
because I grew up in Connecticut,
yeah,
one of the
well,
oldest states,
how,
one of the
yeah,
oldest states in the country. Everything's still abstracted. It goes back.
yeah, yeah,
Sometimes, depending on what the issue is, there's times it's hilarious that they say, well, we got to get back to the King of England.
yeah,
You're talking 400 years, right? That
right.
they got to go back to find out what's going on. And then I've lived in Florida, which is, as far as closings go, it's one of the easiest states. As far as title work and stuff like that. When you mentioned the environmental stuff, that's an issue. But as far as, it's like night and day difference. I mean, Florida's like as simple as it gets, and then North Carolina, I've lived there. That's an attorney state, also one of the 13 colonies, but not as convoluted and as backwards as as Connecticut
Yeah,
was.
and don't even get me started on Chicago.
Yeah, Illinois, yeah, it's like
You know,
New Jersey's like one of the worst. I mean, you start getting, but then you get, like you said, the West Coast stuff. I've done deals, and that's like absolutely nothing.
well,
It's like we
because the
working in
West Coast,
Arizona. It's like, you know,
on the West Coast states, California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, the title company, the actual underwriter who's giving you title insurance also owns the escrow function. They're all in the same office, right? When you get back east, you have a closing company that has an attorney, and he's representing or buying insurance from Fidelity or First American or WFG or whoever. And so they're separate entities, right?
yep.
So, it's just different. So back to bigger pockets is, so you want to, whatever area you're working in, concentrate on people that are local to you that'll have experience and expertise in your local area. Don't be, listening to somebody who's across the country who knows how it's done in his state and is telling you how to do it in a different state when they don't really even know what they're talking about.
Now, I'm not on Bigger Pockets, so I don't really know anything about it other than our conversation. But
Yeah, well, I'm just
like,
saying that for the audience here,
no,
if
no, no,
people
I know.
want to get
I'm
on
just
bigger
one,
pockets.
I guess, a little clarify, and maybe they know, maybe they don't. But if they, this group is basically land investors. So if you're looking for land specific, is you could search for that, or how's that work?
Um, Yeah, I'm not sure that I've even looked at it, if they have a land specific tab or not. I don't know if they do or not. It's an easy site to go on. Even I can use it, so it's easy.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I don't know anything about it, but I mean,
That's
if
one of
it's
the other reasons I'm on there is it's so easy to use. And the other reason is one of the best things I ever learned in high school was how to type, and I type very fast. So I can type a reply and, you know, very quickly.
yeah, I took typing in high school too, and I remember it's kind of funny. Like I hated it, and my dad was like, "You're gonna use it. Make sure you do it anyway." And I'm like, "I'm never gonna." And now I sit at a desk and I use it all day long. I mean, so it's replying to emails and everything. It's like I'm so glad I did that.
And then the people know me too is I don't really use spell check or punctuation, so it is what it is. There's always going to be misspellings and wrong punctuation, but they'll get the point.
Yeah.
So that's how I get a lot of posts out. I just bang them out.
Is there, so on the flip side, because you talked about some caution and what's there, is there any particular trend or buzzword that's going around right now that you see gaining traction there that you would say
Well, one
maybe
one thing
stand
for
away from it, don't
caution,
go don't go down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, there are, if you get on there looking for money, then you got to be very careful because there's a lot of fake lenders out there and they just tell you what they want to hear. Send me your thing over. You're approved. Send me $500. Okay, yeah, we got to go to the next one. Send me another 1,000. Oh, I need to do this. And they don't, and the people are new and they don't know what they don't know. And the next thing you know, they never close. They're out 2 grand and the guy never calls them back. There's a lot of fake lenders in
Yeah,
America.
I even see that. I mean, it's sad. We try to monitor it, but like whenever anybody in our group is always like somebody in our Facebook group, we got a few thousand people in there, and people will be like, "Hey, I've got this deal. I'm looking for funders," and it's like there's people that like I don't even know who they are that joined our group, have never said a peep, and then all of a sudden it's like as soon as a post like that came, it's like DM me, send me details, I have money, and it's just like, and all of a sudden it catches my eye, and I go and I look at it and be like, is this person actually legit? You haven't contributed one single thing ever, but then when somebody asks a question like that, you're like right on it. So and Bigger Pockets obviously has a much bigger audience than we do. So I mean, I can't even imagine what that's like as far as how many people are jumping on it and just claiming to be things.
Yeah, you got to be careful of the fake lenders. And it's not, I mean, some people have posted on there, have lost significant sums, 10, 20, 30 grand to these guys. Um, but as much as anything for the smaller investor, you might have lost 500 or $1,000, but you also lost your earnest money and you also lost a deal that you're going to make 20 grand on because they never came through. The day of funding, oh, the wire will be there tomorrow. Wire will be there tomorrow. Oh, you need to pay for PMI. Well, there is no PMI on private loans, but the people don't know that, right? So it's just the Nigerian prince scam. And anybody can remember this. If you Google Remington Financial and American Greed, they have a great article, a great hour presentation, and a lady named Ingrid Robinson that took them down. And the reason I got so interested in that is she wanted to do a development at Clear Lake, California, where, my dad and I did business for 35 years. And I'm looking at the property. I knew the property. A developer I know knew the property. I knew it couldn't be developed. And they're telling, oh, yeah, you're all approved. You're all approved. They took 10 grand from her. Well, Remington Financial, get to the point, they were in business 22 years. They never asked for more than $10,000. They wanted commercial type deals. And it was proven in court that they never funded more than 11 deals in 22 years. And they made millions. And the owners obviously got significant prison time.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one. And it's funny. I mean, that's
It's
one of the
really
things that
good.
we talk about
It's
is
really
is
good.
is huge is when it comes to scams and when it comes to fraud, real estate's way up there as far as
Well, the
and
other
you
thing that's happening right now in the land business, any of you that are active in it, you're probably hearing from your realtors, there's a lot of people trying to steal land and sell land that they don't own. There's a ton of that. I had one guy brought me a deal over in Driggs, Idaho, and it was a great deal. I know Driggs because I had a friend that had an airplane there at the airport, and it was almost too good to be true. And sure enough, we title company comes back and says that's fake seller, fraudulent seller. So
yeah.
you really got to watch out for fraudulent
And then
sellers
where
too.
it's happening in land more and more is with common names that are easy. Somebody just has owned it for years, doesn't care about it. They have a common name. It's easy to go in. It's easy to, you know, play the game a little bit more. Play, it's we're seeing that with. I haven't actually had that happen to me yet. I mean, title would catch it, so it's not a big deal. But I haven't had it happen. But what I have had happen, interestingly enough, numerous times, is sellers that think you're an idiot that sold the property 6 months ago, but the records haven't updated. And you send them a thing saying I'm interested, and then they try to play it the whole way through, like, yeah, I'll sell it to you. Yeah, they don't even own it anymore. They sold it a few months ago to somebody else. The record hasn't updated with the county, and then you go down the line and you're like, wait a minute, there's a deed recorded here from they don't, they sold it to somebody else. They're still the person we're reaching out to. That happens probably a couple times a month, and we don't even obviously acknowledge them. But it's just like it's amazing how many people are just willing to
Well,
like,
this goes back to my original statement. When you get a deal in escrow and it looks good, you got to run title on it immediately to make sure you're not wasting time.
No.
So when I first started house funding, and I started in Detroit of all places with Nick Vertucci, and Wayne County was so backwards, it was taking them 90 to 120 days to record a deed. And you had all these wholesalers. So in 120 days, that property might have sold 4 times legitimately. The title companies took massive risks there. They had to give you what's called gap insurance. You all are probably familiar with gap insurance. They had to, because I drugged my banker out there because I was going to use my bank line of credit. And we're sitting there talking to the title company, and he's just like, he can't believe it. And he said, okay, well, if I got Fidelity or First American giving me gap insurance, we'll go for it. So,
Great. Um, One thing I do towards the end, we could do real quick before we open it up. I call it the shameless plug section. So, first off, any upcoming projects, initiatives, anything like that that you're excited about, you'd like to share with anybody listening?
no, I'm just doing my normal thing. I actually I did. I made a post on Bigger Pockets this morning about it. Yesterday, I signed on the last 3 vertical construction loans on the 90 houses I just built here in Oregon. So that took 3 years, and that was I borrowed, I don't know, I did I did 90 $500,000 loans, and then sold them all for 700 to a million each. So pretty proud of that. It's been a nice run. We did really well with it.
Yeah, that's a great,
So I'm
great
using that money to fund all you land guys.
double the money. So that
Yep.
being said, then, because obviously it's the question everybody wants to know, and people that are watching this have something they follow through everything that we said, and now they want to possibly work with you. Where can they find out more about you, connect with you, whatever, to go to the next step if it
Well,
works?
they certainly can get on Bigger Pockets and find me real easily. And then they can go to my website, JLH Capital Partners, and just fill out a contact. And
So
then
I'm actually putting the website in the chat for everybody.
there you go.
And
And
if anybody here is listening to this after the fact, like on YouTube or something like that, um, it'll be in the description as well. So
yeah,
just
and my
if you're watching
website
this later,
has
scroll down and you'll see it.
the website has, my team, the 4 of us that run it. It's got good pictures of current projects, past projects, stuff that we've done. I have to update the markets we're in, because since I started the land about 2 years ago, we're in quite a few more markets than we used to be in.
And the last question that I have for you personally is just one that I always ask everybody. I'm a big reader. I know I listen to or read numerous books a year. Um, any current or can't miss business book? It doesn't have to be current. It can be something that you love that you're current, or something that you always go back to, or anything that you tell people this is these principles or whatever. This is something that everybody should read.
Well, I'm going to be brutally honest here. I don't read business books. I,
Okay.
I I don't read them. I can't get past usually the opening 3 pages. They bore me to death. So
I
I
do have
mean
trouble reading them. I can listen to them though. It's weird, but
I don't mind going to like seminars and listening to speakers and guys like that. But as for reading business books, I don't do that.
all right. Well, no problem. Well, so what
That's
I'm gonna
being brutally honest.
yeah, that's fine. What I'm gonna do, everybody, is I'm gonna let you. I'm turning off the locks here, so you can feel free to turn on your cameras if you have questions. You can ask them live. If a bunch of people jump on, just kind of take time here. We can go around. So Jay told us at the beginning that he likes, the old school way of actually having a conversation as opposed to putting it in the chat. So don't feel embarrassed or any reason not to jump on. So feel free. You're all able to unmute and and start your videos if you so desire to ask any questions. We'll go through some of the ones here um, that people have asked. Let's see here. We've got some people jumping on. So there's Steve right there. You were talking about him. So,
Let me
um,
let me just jump in and say hi. I've been chatting with Jay for years and years in Bigger Pockets. We've talked a couple of times. That property he made all that money on now has a gigantic casino on it that is being doubled. You should have held Jay. It would have been worth a lot more now.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
That sold 45 days before COVID came in.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, no, I'll take the money.
still made a couple $1 million. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
really complain.
It was still a good deal.
But I can vouch for Jay and Jonathan. You got a great catch getting him on this call. He's
Thank you,
a real
Steve.
deal.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, honestly, that's one of the things that we try to be picky about who comes on. We try to have, people that have, you know, walked the walk as opposed to just talking, because there's tons of that, right? And people that can actually add value. I mean, I don't make anything out of this, right? I mean, if you guys work together, it's your deal. I mean, you guys make the money, but we want our, from the education side, I could say, we want our students to be successful. And if they have the ability to bring somebody in and, do a deal with you and it works out and they make more money, then that's what we're shooting for at the end of the day. So, um, let's see here. Sorry, I'm looking at some of the side questions here. I don't actually understand JP's question. If he wants to rephrase it, he just said, "What's the highest amount for low balance transactions?" So I don't know the highest amount for low balance.
Basically, in the land, we're like from $5,000 to 250 is kind of our range. And I would say our average deal is 100 grand, 75 to 120 is usually what we're doing.
Okay, and you will go over, just to be clear, because you said this to us, right? I mean, over 250 if it makes sense. It's just a case by case at that point.
It's got to be a killer, no-brainer deal. And part of the reason is just so everybody knows, we have quite a bit of capital, but to keep the velocity of the capital going so we don't have drag on our money, because I got into this niche, especially the cheaper houses in the Midwest, I'm not doing my job if all of a sudden I got 1.5 million sitting in the bank, right? It's going, it's cycling. So because I've started funding all these cheaper houses, the money, I mean, it literally like I get paid off two today. They'll be fun. I'll be funding them on Friday. So that money, it never gathers unless I'm working on one of these bigger deals and then I let some payoffs gather. So that's why I usually can always cobble together a couple 250 or so on the spot. But after that, it's going to be far and few between, and it's going to be case by case.
So that Nick asked a question. Nick's up here, so if he needs any further clarification, he can jump in and ask. But and it kind of goes to what you were just talking about. He just said at any given point in time, how liquid is your company for deals?
Well, if we're working, so here's how I work it, Nick. If I start with somebody, because I'm not looking to do a bunch, I'm not looking for 40 people that are going to do one or two deals a year, and I got to manage all these people. If two or three people came to me, I want to do 20 deals with these three people, right? So what happens is let's say Nick comes in and we're doing really good. He and I start and I say, okay, I'll fund 500, $1 million for you over the next 6 months. Once that money is with Nick, as long as he's cycling it, it never leaves, right? And I usually top out at about 3 million with any one individual. And then they get to use that as their own line of credit,
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So when the money comes back, it's your, but if the money's coming back in and you don't have a home for it, then obviously it's going somewhere else. So that's how I do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You good with that? Any follow up?
Well, I'm just saying, like, obviously, you know me, Jonathan. I've done a lot of deals over the years, but you only have so much capital that you're flush with in your own. slush funds. So it's always good to find other resources, you know what I mean, to fund deals, and link up with people, capital partners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people, I'll just take your overflow. If you
And
got a
in some
deal,
cases, that's everything, right? Because if you're brand new and you don't have any capital, oh, I mean, you can't, and other people like Nick, I mean, Nick was one guy that came along and with us a few years ago and just really embraced land. And him and his partner was one that asked the other question. I mean, they've just gone crazy with it and have done really well. But like I mean, even at their level now, you still have a ceiling. Everybody has a ceiling. There's just no way around it, right?
yeah,
I mean, so that's why that's huge for everybody. And one of the things that I say all the time, anybody that listens to me knows I quote him up and down. Mark Cuban, half a watermelon's better than a whole grape is what his line, right? Well, in this case, it's half a watermelon's better than no grape, right?
well,
Or because you wouldn't have anything if you let the deal go.
that's the other thing on bigger pockets. You got to be careful there because when people get on there and you have a newer investor and they're doing a deal with somebody, you'll get the other guys that are much more experienced and have a much easier way of borrowing money. Oh, you're crazy to do that. Money's a lot cheaper than that. You don't do that. Well, they don't know that these people really can't get money the way these people can. Yeah, for you it's cheaper, and yeah, you can do better, but you're not in their situation, right? So
Yeah,
newer people on bigger pockets got to be careful of being talked out of doing business to where, like you said, 50% of something is better than, nothing of nothing when they don't really even have the ability to buy it anyway.
and one of the things that you told us, and you could talk about a little bit here, is obviously you said your structure and what you do with the individual changes as you build rapport with them because you take a bigger cut obviously the first deal because you don't even know the individual, but you said you had told me there's one guy that you've done, he's multiple six figures in land a year that he's doing that you're funding his stuff, and you said you've adjusted the way the cuts work because of him bringing it to that level as opposed to
Well,
just
yeah, exactly. Like either they'll make money or, not every deal is perfect, as we know. Some of these don't work very well. And when that happens, a lot of times I'm like, well, you owed me, 10 grand. I'm happy. I'll take five. I always want my guys to make money and I don't, we do well enough. I don't have to, you signed a contract. You owe me this amount of money. If it doesn't get that, you need to cut me a check. I don't, with my longtime clients, I always work with people so that they stay enthused and you know try to be a partner, not a lender. There's a different relationship with a lender where you're signing on with a lender and they want all. I mean, just deal with Kiavi or Lima or any of the bigger guys. They're not going to, if they have to take a short pay, you're now a bad credit risk.
so somebody asked the percentage on the partnership. I mean, is that staggered? Is it based on what the way they start and then you work? I mean,
Well, we usually start at a 50-50 and then we adjust from there. And that's kind of how we do it. And it depends on the volume and what the deals are and so on and so forth.
and
So,
honestly, I mean, what I'll say to that, just because I know how people react and what they hear us talk about and stuff, is this isn't to use on every deal. Like I said, if you have $5,000 to go buy $5,000 piece of property and sell it for 15, go put it up and do it and keep the profit yourself. Or if you have the ability to double close the property immediately, like it's not an issue, go get transactional funding and do that and pay less. This is for the deals where it makes sense to buy, you want to take title, you don't have the money, you're going to make more in the long run by doing it. All of those things align, and it's either that or give up the deal, right? Because it's like, oh, I got 30 days to close or something, and the seller's giving me a great deal at 30 grand, and I can sell it for 60, but I don't have $30,000 and I can't close it in a month without it. It's like, well, split $15,000 each then, and you make $15,000 on absolutely nothing invested, right? The person, it's like that's where it makes sense. So it's like, and I know, I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit really quick because I know at the beginning you do want them invested a little bit, right?
yeah, I need them to have a little bit of cash into these. Once we have history, then I'm funding 100% of it.
So just something to keep in mind there as you're going along for anybody. And rather than talk about this in generalities and in this forum with, a couple dozen people on, a few dozen, just reach out. If you've done all the things that we've talked about, and you've got the deal and it's something you want to close and it makes sense just kind of going in with thinking like 50-50, but that's the way it makes sense, then just reach out to Jay and have the discussion. He's going to pick up his phone. He already told you that. So
Yeah, the other thing I've had with some of the bigger companies that I fund, you know, they've got a lot of liquidity sitting in their business, and they might want to be buying something different, right? They want to keep their machine going, but they need to take their liquidity and they need to put it somewhere else. Like half the time it's to buy a ski condo or something. So they want to use their personal money to go do that, but they still need the money to keep buying their inventory. So I've had that happen. I had one guy wanted to buy a condo in Aruba, wanted to take money out, or their partnerships, and one of the partners had all the cash in. He's like, I want my cash back. Here, we're going to use Jay for this. There's all sorts of different scenarios that
and
happen.
I'll be dead honest. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing this as a business model. Just throwing this out there for anybody that's looking at this, because I know people that have done this. If you're not putting any cap, you don't buy any of them yourself, the individual, and all you're doing is funding marketing, and you're now taking those profits and you're putting them back into marketing and getting deals as opposed to the capital to go buy properties because they just rely on you. You may be giving up, say, 50% or close to it on every deal. That's the ability to make money and what you can actually make could actually be higher if you're smart with what you do with your profits, because you're focusing just on marketing, more out there, more touches, more reaching people, getting more deals in the, and then they have you on the back end to actually be the funder of those. Yes, you're giving up stuff, but it's like you're not even worried about that aspect of your business. And if you're really focused the right way at the front end to just keep doing more, it actually can turn into an even better money maker than keeping 100%, but by having to fund them yourself.
It's everybody has a different, comfort level. Having no debt. There's a lot, like me personally, I don't have debt. Some people don't like debt. Some are like, refi till I die. I'm going to borrow every penny I can. I don't mind having all the pen. It's everybody has different, we'll look at it completely different. I want the cheapest money possible. If it's 20% down, I'm going to do that. And if I have to make monthly payments, I'm going to do that. But, that's what I'm going to do. And that's fine. It's their business, their choice, whatever they want to do. We're helping people scale, and then we're helping people, not worried about having, fixed overhead
Yeah.
other than their marketing.
And it's nice. I mean, like I said, even on the lower end deals, I mean, it's nice if you don't have the money. Being you put up $5,000 or whatever it is that they don't have, and it's like they still gets them over the hump and gets things going. Now somebody asked about. I'll just read the way it's worded. It says, "Do you ever do deals using quit claim deeds? I find a lot of partials with defective title, inherited lots, etc. Some investors buy with quit claims and then do quiet title action later to clean up the title."
Yeah, so that's a bid for assets type transaction. No, I'm not going to do quick claim deeds. Other than we did have a lady in Florida that I was funding. She was buying at tax sales, and I was putting up the money, but she was pre-law and she could do her own quiet title. And we did quite well, actually. And I made her so much money, she left me. So, yep. And that's where I lose clients is they can self-fund. So, which is okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, it's even if you can self fund, if you can sell, just a word of advice, because I've been doing this a long time, not as long as you, but I mean, and Nick kind of chimed in on this for somebody that's done really well in the last few years. If you can self fund everything that you're doing, you're not doing enough marketing, because you should run out of capital at some point to it's just not possible, regardless of what. If you could self fund every single deal, as an investor, and you're doing your marketing and all of that, then something's
Well,
wrong in your
let me,
business.
let me get back to the quick claim. I'm not going to fund a quick claim deal, but if someone can buy a property and you want to keep it for camping or personal use, or especially guys I know in low end rental houses where they get buggered up title and they're spending 20 grand on a little crappy house, out in the Appalachians that'll rent for 800 bucks a month. There's no risk in that. You don't need title insurance. You pay cash for it, rent it out. Chances of anybody coming back and taking it from you are slim and none. But for me, protecting my capital, I have to have title insurance.
All right. I think that's it for what's in the chat. If I missed anything, I apologize. So if any of you, I see some people on here, if any of you have questions to ask vocally, go ahead. And I see Chuck's raising his hand, so I guess he has one for you.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you both, gentlemen. Very, very interesting discussion. Two quick questions. I've just got a whole stack of offers about to go in the mail in the state of Oregon, but I heard some discussion earlier about some recent legal restrictions on double closing and so forth in the state of Oregon. I'd like to get that information. I'm not asking for it here, but what would be the best place to dig that out?
I would call the Department of Real Estate.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because the whole double closing, I mentioned that at the beginning. They're going to require people to have wholesaler licenses, and then anybody that's trying to do what you're doing, there's going to be disclosures you have to put on your marketing. It has to be on your outbound marketing. And if you don't, then they can rescind. They have the right of rescission. And you'll have to read it though.
Okay.
I got a bulletin from the Department of Real Estate. So
Well, one thing to remember, Chuck, is it hasn't happened yet, so it's coming soon. But your marketing that you already did, you don't have to worry about going back. We haven't hit that date.
yeah, June 15th though. So get it out in the mail right away.
Okay, good. Next question, also about Oregon. I'm getting a lot of responses from people who own large parcels where they say most of the value is in the timber.
There you go.
Is that something you would even take a look at?
That's a Yahtzee on my end. I'd be all over that.
You would?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. That's what in 92 to 2000, I was in the timber business. That's what I did. I bought timber rights, timberland, ranches, logged them, subdivided them, sold them off.
Well, if I get a deal, there are 2 or 3 of these that are pretty large parcels.
Yeah, I would look at them because I have the ability, my bank will finance those for me.
Okay, I'll take a look. If I got something, I'll let you know.
Yeah, you do that. Keep in mind though, in the timber business in Oregon, people say, oh yeah, it's full of timber. And then you go out there and it's a bunch of Christmas trees. So let me just tell you, Chuck, go out there. If you can't put your arms around it at, 6 feet DBH, diameter at breast height,
Right.
that's a tree that may be merchantable. If it's just a little, pole like for fence posts, it's too young, and people that are going to buy those are going to be long-term investors.
Very good. Excellent.
You can just order. I mean, I'm assuming you would in any of those, Jay. Do you do a timber cruise and get somebody out there to?
I would do a cruise, and I'd be able to borrow on the cruise. I'd be able to borrow against the value of the timber and the land. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, that would be obviously we did. I don't do much with timber, but we've had some, and we always tell people just get the timber cruise and find out what you're going, because you could think it's the greatest stuff on earth, and then they come back and they tell you it's a bunch of pulpwood. And then we've had other ones where you don't think it's anything, and then you find out that there's 40 black walnut trees or something that all of a sudden just jacked the price through the roof because it's like some wood that's. I have a buddy that's a logger up in Idaho, and he's like, you never know until you get out there. He's like, sometimes you just look at it and think it's garbage, and he's like, and all of a sudden it's a $500,000 worth of timber because this a patch of something you didn't expect, and other times it's like 100 acres and you think it's going to be, and it's just total sticks and garbage that nobody wants.
So Chuck, if you just send me over, I can, thankfully with GPS, I mean with Google Earth and everything, I can usually look at an aerial and see if it's even worth,
Even more doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very generous of you. I really appreciate that.
Sure, no
Thank-
problem.
Thank you.
Before we go, any other questions? Here's your opportunity. You're getting 50 something years of experience for free right now, helping you out.
Yeah. Very good.
Everybody done?
If not, we'll let you go.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate talking to everybody and
Thank you, Jay. Thank
look
you.
forward to hearing from you in the future.
All right, and we'll have
Thank you,
his
Jay.
information for all of you in the if you're watching this after. Again, if you're watching this the replay or anything like that, we'll put his information, or for any of you who are watching it live, just go on YouTube in the next couple of days, and his if you didn't pull it from here, we'll make sure his information's in there for you to go out and find him. So
Yeah, I'm wishing everybody the best in the business. It's a great business. Land is fun. It's a fun
Thank you,
business.
Jay. Really
All right.
appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jay.
See you all.
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
joining us, everybody. Have a good night.